Alright guys, as you can see, my dad already got started on this. He's doing a good job. We have a little bit of a gap right here, which we'll probably just cover up with some seam sealer in the end. We'll make sure we weld both sides. When we put the cab corner on, we're gonna have to trim up the cab corner, the actual piece. Everything is pretty much set in place where it has to be. We have to go behind there, weld everything onto this new rear rocker panel, and then get this going. We're gonna do that first, then we'll come out here. We'll trim the cab corner on the other piece where we have to go, and pretty much figure out how to get this lined up perfect. Alright guys, so we are under the backside. As you can see, we have a giant hole in the front. You can see that this entire piece was pretty much rusted out. We're gonna actually sacrifice some of the, well, we're not sacrificing anything because we have that left over from the cab, so we're just gonna use that to make a little plate that covers this. First, we're gonna wire wheel everything, make sure everything's good. Then we'll go in, we'll clamp everything and weld that in and work our way sort of this way. All this is gonna get tacked in. Probably drill some more holes or just do a little bead right underneath. And when it's all said and done, we'll go over it with like a seam sealer so that we can seal all those edges up. It's not really gonna stop the rust too much, but it's a pretty good way to do this. So you can see we have that in there. So there's a few places that we have to weld inside this little column and then weld around. And then same all right here, weld the cross member. And make sure everything is tack welded to the inner rocker. And then we can move on to the outside because I like to start with the hardest parts first, which this is definitely the hardest part, being underneath here with all the rust. So let's get to it. All right, guys, we tacked, I guess. It's really hard to weld thin steel. You can see I welded that, and we're gonna clean that up once it's all, sandblasted under here. But everything is on, it's solid, and the gap is filled right there. That little square is for the little clip that goes in so you can put a bolt through. Other than that, you can see it's still pretty rusty and everything. We'll smooth all of these welds out before the paint. And yeah, so in that sense, the underside is pretty much done. We're gonna go back out here. So this is a little wavy at the moment, but that's just because we tacked everything and it's pulling everything where it was bent. But once we get the cab corner on, and that we're gonna obviously, when we get around here, we're gonna just tack, sort of spread out the heat, because you don't want to warp this because it's going to be hard to try and get that straight. I mean, we are going to be doing Duraglass on it, but it doesn't really matter. You want it to be as non-warped as possible. But we're pretty much done with the inside, which is good. I want to get that part pretty much finished so that, if I don't get done, he doesn't have to go underneath and do any of that. Like I said, we'll clean it up later when we sandblast everything, but right now the main focus is to get this done and get the cab corner on so we can do all the body work on the truck, and then we'll sandblast everything, get everything looking good, fix up all this stuff on the doors, and wherever needs to be fixed, and then we'll go and I don't know if we're gonna take the doors off yet, because it's not like my F550 was, where there's like a giant plug or anything. There could be a plug in there, I don't know, I gotta check, but most of the time it's just the whole wiring harness coming out of there, and there's no plug that connects it to the inside of the dash. So you'd have to, not that there's really, I don't even think there's really much in this besides maybe the blinkers. I don't know, we'll find out. Because it's not like power windows, it's not power locks or anything, so I don't know how much stuff's really going in there. Feels just like a wire's going in there, maybe just for speaker, who knows. But other than that, we'll get back into doing all this. Alright guys, you can see we have the cab corner in. Everything looks pretty dang good. It's all welded around. Have to still drill little spot weld holes, and then I just have this sort of just clamped in there to make sure everything lines up. There's another square that's in the actual cab corner, so you can tell it's completely lined up, and everything works how it should, looks how it should. Now there is the gap back here still, and what we're gonna do is we're probably just going to fill that with some seam sealer, because it's just too much of a gap, and to add another piece on there would be a big pain in the butt. But that's the inside anyway, so you're not really gonna see that too much, because this all has to be seam sealed all down through here where it meets into the cab. So we'll just add some seam sealer in there, and that'll work just as good as anything. Other than that, it's coming up really good. My dad did a really good job fitting the rear or the back side of the rocker, and I'm just trying to finish everything up. I just went and welded everything underneath, as you've seen before. I showed you around, and all that's really left is I have to prep the back side of this, and then just do all the finishing welds and everything. Obviously we're gonna do little spot welds there, spot welds underneath. We're either gonna drill or just use a spot weld drill, so that we can just cut this top part and not go into the back part. So not too crazy, but hopefully we should be done with this tomorrow. I'm gonna try and figure out everything else that I need to figure out and double check everything, but other than that, it's looking good. And once we're all finished, you can see the seam sealer will go here, and that'll seal all that up, and then it'll go up here, it'll go on the back side. So there's gonna be a lot of seam sealer, and then when we finally sandblast underneath, then we'll get to epoxy priming, and I think we're gonna end up Raptor lining underneath there. It's not like an undercoat or anything, it's just an actual hard paint shell. So it'll be good, it'll last for a little bit. We know the rust is gonna come back, doesn't matter what we do. We're gonna put a plow on this, it's meant to be used, so whatever. All this is just gonna get painted with primer most likely, and then covered back up and everything put back on, and then we're gonna prep and pretty much paint everything. Like I said before, I don't know if we're gonna take the doors off and all that stuff. I don't know if he wants to go too crazy here. We have to paint this, so it might just be easier taking the doors off. And like I said, the only thing that's on here is the speakers and maybe the mirror blinker. I don't even know if that works. So if not, then really there's not any electrical into this. It's just the two wires going to the speaker. so you just seen I drilled everything out to make spot welds, cleaned everything up so I can weld good onto there, and then drilled out all the holes around the cab corner. So we're gonna weld all this up first, and we're gonna grind these two down so that they're flat. We can put the mid rocker on, and then pretty much weld that rocker in place, and then we have the cab corner and rocker rebuilt. Big pain in the ass, but it's nice to do from what we had. We really needed it, so we're gonna get that done right now, get that all spot welded in with the welder, and we'll come back. Alright, so we got everything all tacked up, spot welded. A few welds popped while we were doing it, so we just drilled right next to it and added some more. Same with the back. And then we just started grinding all this. Everything looks and fits correct. There's not too much distortion around the weld area, but everything is looking good. The only thing we have to do is pretty much clean this up and then seam seal everything and make sure everything is sealed from the weather, since there's a gap up behind it. But that is also factory. And then we'll come in here, we'll paint some epoxy maybe. Is that what you want to do, epoxy? And then that will all be good in there. And then he has to do some work on the door. As you can see, the common rust issue that Ford's and every other company has. But everything is looking good. Close the door. Gap lines up pretty good. It's a little off on the bottom, but if you notice on the top, as you get higher, it comes in just like the bottom. So every panel's different, they're stamped different. I mean, this is an 03 and I have a 2023, so a 20-year newer cab corner on it. So it's not going to be 100%, but it'll be pretty damn close. But other than that, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.